Good afternoon. It's time to call to order the January 23rd, 2018 meeting of the Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust. If there's any citizens here who wish to be heard, there are sign-up cards outside and a sign-up sheet. If you would fill out same and hand it to the clerk, we will call you at the appropriate time. Thank you all for being here. With that, let's open the meeting, and the first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the December 4th Oklahoma City Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust meeting.
If it's the Economic Development Trust, so move.
This is the Economic Development Trust. We have a motion, a second. Any discussion or questions? Please cast your votes. And it is approved. Next item on the agenda, I believe we have ratified the OCEDT claims. The claims have been given to you.
I'll move the item as submitted.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any questions? Please cast your votes. And the claims are ratified. Next items for individual consideration. Who's going to cover the first one, Eric? Or?
I think Eric's going to cover the first item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We do have a single item from Project 180. Actually, it's not Project 180. I take that back. This is just a general city item on the Phase 2 Bricktown infrastructure improvements. I think you might have recalled about a month or so ago we did an update, and this is the second phase to further enhancements in Bricktown to some of the infrastructure that's starting to show some age. This is a project that's going to be predominantly located on Oklahoma Avenue from Reno to Main and Main Street from the railroad to Mickey Mantle. We recently took bids on December 13th, and so we're ready to award the contract. So for today is the ratify and approve addendum number 1, adopting resolution extending the time to award the contract and award to Crossland Heavy Contractors in the amount of $697,900. And so with this, additional pavers that have settled, ADA ramps that are out of compliance, some of the landscaping, and just again, some of the general infrastructure of Bricktown is going to be upgraded with this contract.
And the completion date, spring of 2018?
Yes, so with your approval today, we hope to start in February and be done before summer.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
And the funding for this project or projects?
I believe this was all TIF funds, so it says TIF number 2.
Thank you, sir.
And the contract amount includes the testing laboratory expense issues?
So it does not. So I will tell you that the project, which would include the engineering and the testing, is in excess of that amount. So what you have on your agenda today is just the award of the construction contract. So there are additional costs for the engineering and the testing.
I'll move the item.
We have a motion. Second. Any further discussion, questions? Seeing none, please cast your votes. And it is so ratified. Next up, we have a request for a proposal going out for some new development. Kathy, you going to handle that?
Yes.
Okay.
This item is related to the real estate purchase agreement that the trust approved several weeks ago along with the City Council to acquire a piece of property south of the Chesapeake Arena and east of the Omni Hotel site to construct a parking garage, and at the time we had hoped that there would be the potential to fit some private development on that site as well. We've done some initial concept plans, and it does appear that it will be possible to fit both a large enough parking garage and some residential development on this parcel. What we are requesting and what Urban Renewal asked for in their meeting last week was to request that OCEDT authorize Urban Renewal to issue the request for proposals for the private development piece and run the process as we do for all of our private development with a selection committee that would be made up of people from city staff and from the Alliance staff to review any proposals that we get. And then at some point in the future, we will decide exactly which entity enters into the agreement with the redeveloper, whether that's the city, the Economic Development Trust, or Urban Renewal. And that hasn't been determined yet and really kind of just depends on some of the finer points of who might have the best authority to enact the redevelopment agreement or enforce it. So the Urban Renewal Authority did consider this item last week in its meeting, and I think it may have been presented as if it was an already decided deal. The decision is the Economic Development Trusts in the cities, not Urban Renewals, but Urban Renewal authorized the issuance of the RFP in the event that this body does give that authorization. So it was all contingent upon whatever decisions you make today. We understand that the Economic Development Trust owns the property, but we do have some experience with writing RFPs and running selection processes and considering the evaluations. Just to remind you, on an urban renewal project, typically we have a design review process. We sometimes get third-party opinions about design, so we get input from architecture firms about the design, and then the board does have design approval at certain steps through the process. So we're accustomed to that, and that helps us make sure that we get the project that we intend, that it's a high enough quality and that it's built to the standards that the city expects. Just a little bit additional information. The parking garage project will be constructed by the city and COTPA as a city project. They'll select an A&E firm. They'll prepare detailed plans and specifications. It will be publicly competitively bid and constructed as a city project. So the parking garage piece of this is not a part of what we're asking Urban Renewal to do. I do think it's important that we get a developer and the A&E firms both on board as soon as possible so that the projects can be designed together, or that we make sure that they work well together. I think there's some advantages to the city about having the commercial development on the site. It could help offset some of the real estate purchase price. It also could reduce the cost of the garage itself, because if it's wrapped with apartments, you don't have to put as pretty a facade on it, and sometimes that's the biggest expense on these parking garages. So we think we've got some real opportunities here that we'd like to explore further and get ready for construction to begin in March of 2019. So that's the explanation of the item.
Thank you, ma'am. Questions from trustees?
I do. Thank you for that. It's very helpful, and certainly understand the benefit of integrating design and construction, hopefully, so that a project doesn't come in as trying to be built after you've put in new infrastructure. That being said, the language seems specific to commercial, and I'm just curious because I heard you describe like multifamily or residential. Is Occur, the city, open to just purely commercial enterprise, or is this going to be commercial in the traditional definition sense?
Well, when we say commercial, I think we mean it could be office or residential. It could be mixed use. I think that even the parking garage component may be constructed with some retail in it, just so that we get that active first floor uses, especially along the boulevard. So I think it could be retail, it could be residential, and it could be office. And we would be open to any of those kinds of development, and would really just look at the design and the pro forma, the cost of the project, how much of a project can we get on this site, and see what the private sector has to bring.
Since I chose the words, I do mean by commercial to include residential, any number of components of
I was
businesses.
reading Wiley's mind.
Right, but that's my hat off to you. There's a lot to read. So private development is essentially what we're seeking. Okay, then I would move the item with that understanding. Thank you.
Because, correct me if I'm wrong, there have been some discussions about including on this site a component for affordable housing. Is that?
Yes, I think if
Possibly.
that's right. If we write, we may put in the RFP a preference for workforce housing. I'm not sure that it would be entirely an affordable housing project. It might be partially market rate and partially workforce housing. to try to get a good mix of incomes, but we would like to try to build a project that people that work at the hotel or the convention center could live there and walk to work and just have a very urban kind of living experience.
I'd like to second it, please.
Okay, who made the initial? You did, Jim? Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please cast your votes. And it is so approved. Next up, Mr. Bryan, are you covering? Okay.
No, this is the economic development agreement with MD Building Products to create 105 new jobs in Oklahoma City. And the maximum allocation that you authorized was $157,500. So I think we've had a presentation from the company on this project last month. And actually, it wasn't last month. It was January of 2017, so it was a year ago.
It was last month.
I got a little confused with my dates. Time flies when you're having fun, so anyway.
Mr. Chair, I had the great opportunity to tour this facility a few months ago as they opened up their new center, and it was great to see so many people who I know who live in Ward 7 to actually be able to work somewhere within Ward 7. So I am grateful that they are adding again 105 jobs to the Oklahoma City area. With that said, I move for approval.
Thank you, sir. We have a motion and a second. You want to utter the famous words?
Yes, Councilman. This is our typical strategic investment program agreement that is performance-based. There are no funds will be provided up front. They'll be paid out over a 5 to 7 year time frame as they create those jobs. So it's our standard program. So.
And the salary for the jobs is?
They're around $36,000 a year is the average salary.
And the workers that are going to take those jobs will have health insurance?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Did we get a motion yet or not? Okay, and a second?
Yes.
Any further discussion? Please cast your votes. And it is approved. It's fortuitous that it happened today. Some of you may have noticed in the paper that Mecklenburg Duncan announced the buying of a corporation. I hope it doesn't get as much flack as the Sonics did and the Elephants did, but it's a Seattle corporation, so they continue to grow, and we're very fortunate to have them, and we're glad they're in Ward 7, sir. They've been there a long time. Okay, next up we have on our agenda,
We have Kurt Foreman with the
Mr. Foreman
City
from the
Chamber of Commerce to give his quarterly report.
Well, Happy New Year. Good to be with you. On behalf of the Economic Development Foundation and the Chamber, we just wanted to give you a quick update. The second quarter of the fiscal year is sort of that story of the rock gaining momentum as it goes down the hill. We've been pushing it uphill for quite a while. We've had a good few quarters, but this quarter was particularly good. We are at record levels. I've talked about that before, but we're at record levels for project activity. Just to give you some perspective, our project level 2 years ago at the same time was around 38 projects. We're at 59 projects. So the project intake and the mix of projects continues to be extremely positive. So we are working at that. The other thing that's very positive is about 70% of the projects we're working on are coming directly to the partners who represent the city and the community. So that's because we've been out telling our story and making the case that we can help people. So about 30% of our projects come through the state, about 70% directly from brokers or consultants or companies directly. So that's a real positive sign that people are specifically focused on our area and want to look at our area, not just a broader swath of states or that sort of thing. We've been on the road a good bit, telling the story again. We We have a full team now on our existing business team. We've fully staffed it up, and they are out engaging companies at the levels we're used to and are doing a great job. And so just lots of good things going on. We have an announcement later this week that will be happening, a project that told us in December that they would be coming to the community, and that will be unveiled on Friday. And they hopefully will come before you in February. We have a couple projects that are pending that will be coming through in the February trust meeting, but lots and lots of good things going on. We are pleased. The last couple projects that came in, the average salary was above $60,000, so we're starting to see the salaries go back up to what we were used to, sort of pre-energy slowdown, which is always real positive. But we ended the calendar year at almost $50,000 average salary, which is about $12,000 higher than for 16 calendar years. So we're seeing the increase in the kind of jobs in terms of the quality of positions that are considering our market. Also, to the chairman's preference, about half our projects right now are manufacturing. So we've seen a significant uptick in manufacturers looking at the market, which is extremely positive. Those jobs, all in all, tend to be at least a little bit higher paying, tend to offer a better benefits package, all other things being equal, and obviously bring dollars in from outside the market rather than just pushing those dollars around the market and taking them from someone else. But lots of good attention. I'd be happy to answer any questions if there's anything particular. Our retail efforts continue unabated, and that's always a positive effort. Tammy's done a great job, and she's here today if you have any questions for her as well. But we've been working really hard on lots of fronts, so happy to talk about any of those that you may have in mind.
Thank you, Kurt. Questions for Kurt?
Are you able to say the diversity of industries in the manufacturing sector? Industries?
What would you describe?
Yeah, I'm fishing.
A lot of them are food. A lot of them are food-oriented, which is interesting. That's not typically been a big part of our mix, but we're seeing a number of food-related projects. Not a lot that relate to energy, which historically our manufacturing was very heavily tied to energy, whether it was components for the wells or things like that, consumables for the process. But we're seeing a much broader mix of projects. We have some aerospace projects in the mix again, which is always extremely positive, and good interest from a variety of parts of the country as well, which is excellent.
She's trying to get a preview for your Friday announcement.
No, I'm not.
I think that does speak volumes to the chamber process, because aren't you the
She's the current
leader
chair, yes.
of the...
Yes, she is.
Right. Right. So my compliments to you and your discussions. Right.
My family always makes fun of me because I won't even tell them what's going on, so...
But, Jim, the fact of the matter is the last three announcements that have been made all happen to have one thing in common. They're all in Ward 3. So thank you for that softball. I've been waiting for a while to use that, which I had nothing to do with, I'll be real honest, okay?
Well,
Any other comments or questions for Kurt?
The key is where do we have the product ready to go or could be made available to go within the time frame companies want. And so there's been a lot of effort in that part of the city for that. And so we just need to redouble our efforts. There are some interesting projects looking at Ward 7 and other parts of the city too, but if we don't continue on the product sort of mindset, we won't be able to step up and make things happen. Thank you very much.
Need a motion to receive the report? Second? Second. Any comments or questions? Please cast your votes. And it is received. Okay. Next, we have a presentation.
Yes, we have a presentation by Kenny Soodle on the tax increment revenue bond issue that was recently completed.
Good afternoon. Just wanted to give you an update about the results of the bond sale that took place last week for TIF number 2. and it will be closing on January the 30th. And just to recap, back in November, this body approved a set of bonds not to exceed $75 million for TIF number 2. The council approved that in December. We actually ended up only selling $67,355,000 of bonds. We had a true interest cost of 3.11% on taxable bonds. And just to recap, that was really done for 3 purposes. One was to refund, or really 2 of the purposes were to refund the 2 outstanding bank loans that were out there. One was the 2008 note, about $16 million went towards that. That note had a 6.99% rate, so we're refunding that for savings. We also had a line of credit that we've been using to manage our cash flow for projects. About $18 million, a little under $18 million is going to refund that. And just to kind of mention that was something that as we go along, it was a variable rate note. It's been a great tool. It was uncertain that we were going to be able to renew at the same terms. Also, with rates changing and going up, it was based on a LIBOR rate, a London interbank offered rate that is going away in 2021 as well. So there was just some need to refund that and go ahead and lock in our costs and provide some certainty. And then finally, the remaining balance of that was done to provide some cash flow for existing projects of TIF 2, things that had already been approved. And I would say, just to sum up, it was a good bond sale, provides us some certainty on our costs going forward. And I did want to reiterate that this really was to help us set some certainty to know that we had the projects that had already been committed to be funded, and also helps us to understand in the last 10 years of TIF 2 what will be available for future projects. And one of those is our Convention Center Hotel project and any other future projects. So just kind of to reiterate, this bond deal was not for the hotel, but it does help set the stage so we know what might be available there. And so just to sum up, the debt service on these bonds for the next 10 years will be about $7.8 million a year. We think our property taxes will be about 12.3, the incremental revenues that we get, and there are other revenues above that, but that's kind of how we sell these bonds. So you can see we have a very good coverage there of over 1.5 times. Just kind of a couple pieces of information too. These were rated AA2, so that they do have a city backstop behind them, but they're rated AA2, which is 2 notches below the highest rating by Moody's. And then a little bit of a surprise to myself was these were rated AA plus by S&P. So these are, I don't know this for sure, but I'm guessing they're probably some of the highest rated TIF bonds in the country. I mean, so it's a very, very good deal. And our underwriters on the deal were led by Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, and we had Bank of Oklahoma, Wells Nelson, and Piper Jaffray on the team. So just to give you that report and let you know what happened, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Kenny. Questions for Kenny?
I do. Thank you for the report. Any plans on the balance and the bond capacity, 7.5 that didn't issue?
No, so that's a good question. Typically what happens is we kind of size what we need to do to accomplish what we were setting out to do. You all, when you approve the resolution, set limits on that, but those limits are only for this one bond deal, so we won't be issuing any further debt under what you all approved previously. We just give ourselves a little bit of room in case rates moved or something changed in the market. But that's a good question, and this will be it for TIF 2.
And do you feel the interest rate was proportional to the rating?
Yes. I feel like it was a very good rate, especially when you remember these are taxable bonds, and so this is really, really cheap money, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kenny. We don't have to take a vote or anything on this, correct? Thank you, ma'am. Moving right along, General Manager reports.
The General Manager report is in your packet. The financials are through November 30th of 2017. And I would just like to note that the outlet mall sales were up again. They're about 3.3% above target and an increase of 4% above the same previous months last year. So the sales at the outlet mall are still doing really well and performing much better than they had last year.
Any questions or comments on the general manager reports? Seeing none, do we need any action on this? I don't think we do, right? Okay, that concludes. Are there any, let's see, are there any citizens who wish to be heard? Any trustees wish to be heard? Seeing none, we are adjourned.